Lesson 31, flowcharts and paragraph proofs. It came to my attention later yesterday, I think, as I was telling you all in class yesterday that we were going to review today and test tomorrow, that today's an early out and tomorrow we don't have school. Neither do we have school on Monday. So we're kind of pushing everything back just so that you're aware of kind of what's going on. We're going to do lesson 31 today, 32 on Tuesday, 33 on Wednesday. We will review on Thursday. We'll test next Friday. That means that the next test after that will come the next Friday. So it's going to come pretty shortly after this next test. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So we're back at proofs, but we're not learning any new postulates or theorems or justifications or anything like that. We're not looking at any new scenarios for different types of questions that we might solve. All we're looking at here today is a different format for showing proofs. Okay. Up to this point, what you have learned is you've learned the two-column proof, and really the two-column proof is mostly the preferred method. Okay, but you're going to learn this. We'll go through it quickly. It's not something I want to spend a great deal of time on, but I do want to introduce you to it. Okay, in the event that you see it later on in something like an ACT test, I want you to know what it is. Okay, so, and I don't have, you do want to be looking in your book for this because it's going to have better visuals than what I could make up. So you need to either be looking in your textbook or ebook on page 198. You can kind of see some examples between 198, 199, and 201. You'll see some examples. But a flowchart is a style of proof that uses boxes and arrows to show the structure of a proof. Think of it not as like a Venn diagram, but a diagram in general of the steps used to get to a conclusion. Okay? So a flowchart proof should be read from left to right if it's being done from left to right. Okay, we can do it from left to right or from top to bottom, just as, you know, right over the top of this. If we start, say we have a couple of givens, right, we may see something like this, you know, then they come into the same thing, right? That type of flowchart would be read from left to right. And the reason that we have things like flowcharts is because sometimes we have more than one given that leads to its own conclusion, right? So I may start off here with a given and start off here with a given, and this given up here leads to this next step, and this given down here leads to this next step. These statements here lead to the same step, and from here I've finished my proof. All right, so a flowchart shows visually how I'm getting to my end result. Okay, because sometimes we are given more than one given, but those givens don't necessarily lead to the same next step. Does that make sense? So you can write it up from left to right like you see here, or sometimes what they'll do is they'll work it, you know, say from top to bottom. Okay, something like that. Okay, so it's a way of diagramming. It's all the exact same information that we've had in our proofs. Yes? Is there a difference between side to side and up and down? No, there's no difference. It's purely out of preference as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so no, there's not a time where, okay, it says do a flowchart proof, and you're going to be wrong if you did it side to side versus up and down. Okay, yeah. Between this and a two-column proof, just appearances. It's not any different information, right? So basically what you would see with this is you could take a two-column proof and turn it into a flowchart with all the exact same information. And what's going to go inside the box? What goes inside the box is your statement, okay? So statement, 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 statement. What goes underneath the box is the reason. So instead of seeing you know, the reason drawn out in the second column, it's drawn right underneath that box. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, but it's the same statements. It's the same reasons that we would have had we done a two-column proof out of it. Do you follow me? Okay. So if I was ever going to have to write a flow chart purely from scratch, and in this class you very rarely ever have to do that, because even on your test, it's going to have a mostly completed flow chart where you need to fill in the missing information. Right? Unless you get a question in your homework that has you write one. If I was going to have to write one from scratch, I would write a two-column proof, because that's how my brain works and operates. And then I'm going to split that and start doing my boxes and creating my flow chart from there. Okay. Moving on here a little bit. Flowchart proofs are useful when a proof has two different threads, and that's what we're talking about, starting with different places and branching off. They could be performed at the same time rather than in sequence with one another. Whenever a proof does not proceed linearly, one step to another, a flowchart proof should be considered. All right, so it's just whenever it's not this is this, and this is this, and this is this, and this is this, right? If there's ever more than one thing going on, or possibly more than one thing going on at a time, that's where you want. Okay, thank you. All right, the next one, and again, same principle. It's the exact same information that's in your two-column proof, but it's a paragraph proof. Okay, and a paragraph proof is what you think. It's a paragraph. But what's unique about it is that each sentence is my statement and reason. Okay, so each sentence in the paragraph includes my statement information and my reason information, or my justification. Okay. A lot of times what they'll do is that they'll, list the statement, comma, reason. Sometimes what you'll see in some of these that we'll look at is that they'll have the reason, by the subtraction property of equality, comma, we subtracted 3 from both sides of the equation, right? That's an example sentence, okay? It's the same thing that would have been in your two-column proof. It's just put into a sentence form, okay? So it's nothing to get necessarily daunted by, thinking that I'm having to do something completely different. You're not. You're just putting it in a different format. All right? So it's a style proof in which statements and reasons are presented in a paragraph form. In a paragraph proof, every step of the proof must be explained by a sentence in the paragraph. Each sentence contains a statement and a justification. A paragraph proof is good for short proofs, where each step follows logically from the one before. So this is where it differs a little bit from if they said, okay, here's a two-column proof. If we had to convert this into either a flow chart or a paragraph proof, which one would you choose? All right. In the event that we want to convert it to a paragraph proof, we're looking for something that's fairly short and linear. Okay. If it's non-linear, that's where we're going to say flow chart. Okay. All right, so paragraph proof is good for short proofs. Each step is logical. Paragraph proofs are usually more compact than two-column proofs. Okay, meaning just take up a little bit less space. All right, so let's take a look at some of these things. Let's see how we do. We've got just a few minutes here. So it says use the given two-column proof to write a flowchart proof. You'll notice that here's the two-column proof here. Here's the flow chart down here. Okay, so all this is okay, so we see angle 1 is congruent to angle 4, given. All right, and then we see that information shown there, right? So do we get how we could take a two-column proof and simply plug in? Okay, down here we see linear pair theorem. So what's going to end up going with the linear pair theorem? Okay, you're absolutely right. Okay, angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary. Angle 1 and angle 4 are supplementary is going to go right there. Okay, so that's one. The next thing that we see that we'd have to fill in is this 2 box. So that's a justification. So what's the justification for angle 2 is congruent to angle 3? congruent supplements theorem. And I'm not going in today and trying to explain the proof to you. I'm just trying to explain how we go from a two-column proof to a flowchart proof. Okay? Does that make sense? So if you can write a two-column proof, do you see how we can write a flowchart proof? We're not learning really anything new other than just a different way to show it. Okay? All right. Number 2 says use the given paragraph proof to write a two-column proof. So kind of working backwards here a little bit. Okay. So this is an example of what a paragraph proof would look like. It says since angle BAC is a right angle, measure angle BAC is 90 degrees. Let's see. By the definition of a right angle. And I don't know, did I miss a sentence? Yeah, I don't like that they don't do this, but notice that their first sentence starts with step number 2. They don't give the, I really think, and this is where I'll disagree with this, they should have given statement number 1 and the given as sentence number 1. Okay, they didn't in this case, but you should. If you ever have to write a paragraph proof, say, you know, the information that I've been given is this, period. Okay, and that gives your justification, it gives you your statement. We go from there. All right, so for statement 3 and reason 3, we're going to look at sentence 2. Do we follow that? So it says, by the angle addition postulate, measure angle BAC equals measure angle 1 plus measure angle 2. Do we see the statement shown in sentence 2? Okay. Let's see, Jordan, what is the reason that we see in sentence 2? What is the justification? Okay. Sentence 2, what is the postulate or theorem that we're using here that we would plug in for our reason? Okay, so what you're seeing is that measure angle BAC equals measure angle 1 plus measure angle 2 is my statement, right? Okay, and I see that in my sentence right there. So what I'm looking for is what is the reason in that sentence for that? Very good. Angle addition postulate. Okay. And you see how those two things are separated by a comma? All right, so that's typically what we'll see. Now, sometimes the order will be flipped. Sometimes they'll give me my justification and then my statement, which is what they did here. Other times, notice in sentence 3, what's it start with? It starts with my reason and ends with my statement. In sentence 4, it starts with the statement and ends with the reason. Okay, there's not really one way that has to be done, but they are typically separated by a comma. And there is one of each in each sentence. Okay, so if you follow it, you should be able to figure it out. So we see substitution, so we want to come down to our next sentence that has measure angle 1 equals measure angle 3. Let's see, since measure angle 1 equals measure angle 3, okay? Measure angle 1 is equal to measure angle 3 by the what? What is my reason there, Maddie? Okay, we're in this sentence right here. Okay, and we're trying to match it up with number 5. Okay, well, I've got the statement underlined, okay, which matches with my statement on number 5. I just need the justification or reason in that sentence. Okay, why don't you go ahead and read that sentence for me, the one that I've got bracketed in red. Angle 1 is congruent. Okay, and that's where it stops. So, like I said, the statement has already been underlined, right? I just need to know what the reason or the justification listed in that sentence is. And it's stated in the sentence. We're not trying to make anything up. We're not trying to read between any lines. It's just what part of that sentence is my reason. What part of it is not underlined yet? Boom, there it is. Definition of congruent angles is my reason. Does that make sense? Sometimes, because when we've talked about reasons, reasons can be postulates, they can be theorems, and if you remember, they can also be definitions. Okay? All right? So typically speaking, half the sentence is my statement, the other half the sentence is my reason. There shouldn't be a lot of non-useful information in any given paragraph proof sentence. Does that make sense? Okay? So don't try to overthink it. Don't try to overcomplicate it. Okay? All right? And so I think that's all we needed from that, right? Okay. We're going to hit stop there. Hopefully that gives you enough information to get started.